It can just break your heart sometimes. There's a Pokemon that has what seems like all the tools to be a successful offensive threat. The speed, the typing, ability, everything comes together. On paper, this thing should bust some heads. You get out there, excited to try it, and suddenly you have the awful sinking realization that you just do not have good buttons to click with this Pokemon in the situations you find yourself in. This Pokemon is betrayed by its move pool, and so it has betrayed your odds of winning. You find yourself getting your head busted instead. That's the subject of today's video. Pokemon who find themselves, often surprisingly through some ill-conceived design choice of Game Freak's, bereft of options required to fulfill their potential. It's often just one little thing, but the little things are seriously make or break, and that's why we're exploring them. So we're counting down the top 5 Pokemon betrayed by their move pool. Blacephalon is a unique case. Saying it is quote-unquote betrayed by its move pool may feel harsh or dramatic, depending how you look at it, but it certainly has a dilemma both peerlessly impactful and one of a kind in this regard. It has nearly no coverage outside of its stabs, but seeing as its stabs are individually among the best in the game and together are one of the fiercest combinations, especially when coming off of its solid speed and astonishing special attack, this doesn't seem like much of a problem, and usually it isn't. Its only true problem with its lack of coverage is how it leaves it utterly hapless into its stab combination's greatest enemy, Tyranitar. The situation is both better and worse in Gen 8, as their Blacephalon can actually afford to run into T-Tar, not forever of course, given their stealth rock and all, but the point is that it isn't instantly removed from the battle by Pursuit, which is no longer in T-Tar's move pool. On the other hand, Gen 8 Blacephalon's own move pool is also lacking in that last Respite 4, or in many cases, essential savior of Pokemon without other coverage options, Hidden Power. What's really interesting though, is that in Gen 7, Blacephalon has Hidden Power like any other Pokemon, and yet it doesn't. Most Pokemon can use any type of Hidden Power they please, except for Fairy, which never got made a Hidden Power type for some reason. Probably because someone at Game Freak really liked Hydreigon and then Komodo or something. Blacephalon though is incredibly unique in how it is not quite so lucky. You would think that the Great Tyranitar problem is the most solvable thing in the world, right? All you do is slap Hidden Power Fighting or Blacephalon and you're good to go. Sure, it'll take some prediction, and you'd have to rack up some chip on Assault Vest variants of T-Tar, but generally, this was a very workable situation, far superior to the alternative of, just rolling over and getting KO'd. The problem? Blacephalon can't use Hidden Power Fighting. Now, this has happened before. Certain event Pokemon in the past, such as Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed Entei, have been locked at one Hidden Power. In Entei's case, it was Grass, which actually worked perfectly for it, despite the adamant nature it was also locked to, since it was quadruple effective against checks packing low special defense. This wasn't the case for Blacephalon though. It had no such restrictions. In fact, Blacephalon had access to every single type of Hidden Power except Fighting. Why? Well, okay, that part is less unique. It's because it's an Ultra Beast. Hidden Power is determined by IVs, and all Ultra Beasts have at least 3 of their 6 stats to have guaranteed perfect 31 IVs. But for HP Fighting, you need 4 stats, specifically Defense, Special Attack, Special Defense, and Speed to be at 30. Thus, the Ultra Beast and the Ultra Beast killer Silvally for that matter, as well as the other Gen 7 legendary Pokemon and even Gen 6 are simply too gifted to ever have Hidden Power Fighting. None of them can learn it. This does bring us back to Blacephalon and being unique though. None of these other Pokemon care at all that they don't have Hidden Power Fighting. Nobody has ever been frustrated that they can't tech Hidden Power Fighting onto Yveltal. Blacephalon on the other hand needs it more than anything else you can name. Overall, Blacephalon is still a monstrous OU threat in both Gen 7 and 8, which is why it's only number 5 on this list. But don't get us wrong, it's quite frightening, and not just because it's a clown that throws its own head, it's just that it's held back from being even scarier by incredibly specific circumstances not applicable to just about anything else. Mega Pidgeot had promise on a grand scale when it arrived in Generation 6's Oras. Let's set the stage. Flying has been a fierce offensive stat since the days of Advance, where even the fact that they had to rely on the 70 base power Hidden Power Flying didn't stop Choice Band Salamence and Aerodactyl from dominating. In a similar vein, despite an unimpressive base 90 attack stat, Gen 3 Ubers often saw Lugia adorned with a Choice Band, dishing out Aeroblasts. In Generation 4, Staraptor and Honchkro's Brave Birds bludgeoned you badly enough to blacklist them to BL, while Shaman Sky's air slashes slice through OU and then Ubers once it's been banned. Then in Generation 5, Hurricane was introduced and given to the incredibly fast, powerful Tornadus. At a stunning 120 base power, it was basically a special Brave Bird, except it also had an amazing 30% chance to confuse. Oh, the drawback? Well, it wishes it had Brave Bird's recoil. That's something that can be dealt with far more easily than Hurricane's fatal flaw. It's 30% accuracy. Sorry, we meant 70% accuracy. But of course, it certainly feels like 30% is the actual accuracy and not the chance to miss. It's a rule of Pokemon in general. See also Scald's burn rate. Anyway, Hurricane, like its cousin Thunder, could never miss in rain. So in Politoed's Perma Drizzle Gen 5, Tornadus could get around the issue just fine. In fact, when Black and White 2 came around, its alternate, slightly weaker, much faster Therian form was so good at abusing Perma Rain Hurricane that it got itself banned. However, both Tornadus forms were out of luck in Generation 6, where Perma Rain was no longer. Well, Hurricane was also dropped to 110 base power, but that was much more manageable, and thus with their stab, they were basically stuck with the flying equivalent of Focus Blast, another move renowned to the world over for its dependability. There's a reason Focus Blast is avoided by Pokemon not carrying Fighting MZ or with access to Aura Sphere. The issue for Tornadus was that if it wanted to dip away from its Gen 6 standard of Assault Vest and be an actual offensive threat, it needed to run Focus Blast for coverage as well. It could get by with relying on Focus Blast previously when its stab Hurricane couldn't miss under the rain, but with two 70% moves in its arsenal, well, it didn't stop some players from using Life Orb Tornadus Therian, as it was indeed a massive threat if it hits its move. Many players remarked that if Tornadus Therian hit all its moves, it would probably be Uber, but that was a gigantic if, going well beyond the standard Focus Blast blues of Alakazam and friends. Some players resorted to Wide Lens, but this was gimmicky and still incredibly unreliable. 77% stab is still a far cry from great. People were rightfully uncomfortable for Hydro Pump and Stone Edge's 80% after all. That's where Mega Pidgeot came in. It packed the same unique, incredible speed stat as Tornadus Therian, and its amazing base 135 special attack stat far outstripped even the stronger Tornadus Incarnate. Its Hurricanes hit hard, and without the need of the move restricting choice specs, the recoil-inducing Life Orb, or the frankly stupid Wide Lens. Like the Torrents, it could U-turn, it could Heat Wave, and unlike the Torrents, it could both roost as well as boost its special attack through Workup, as the Torrents wouldn't receive Nasty Plot until Gen 8, where Mega Pidgeot no longer existed. Well, what about the accuracy woes? All the power in the world wasn't going to do Mega Pidgeot much good if it was going to be missing Hurricane against Latios and getting decked in return. That's the kicker though. Mega Pidgeot's ability was no guard, meaning that none of its attacks could miss. None of its opponents could either, but that was a perfectly fair price to pay. Still advantageous by far for a Pokemon spamming base 135 special attack stab Hurricanes too. Not being able to miss Heat Wave was neat too. So Mega Pidgeot seemed perfectly poised to fly where the Tornadus duo could not. So why didn't it? Because of its move pool, of course. It was just missing one move, but that one move could have made all the difference. Remember how we said the Tornadus duo had to rely on Focus Blast for coverage? Well, that move was noticeably missing from Mega Pidgeot's move pool. Mega Pidgeot, whose no guard meant it could never miss Focus Blasts. Come on, Game Freak. Mega Pidgeot's whole design was based around the concept of its ability fixing inaccuracy, as it certainly wasn't a special attacker before, and you couldn't give it the most screamingly obvious candidate for the move. With Focus Blast, Mega Pidgeot would have torn OU to shreds. At the very least, it would have had a legitimately threatening niche. Without Focus Blast, it would be blanked by those eternal gatekeepers of OU viability, Tyranitar and Heatran. And for that matter, despite its lack of fighting weakness, Rotom Wash. It wasn't all doom and gloom for Mega Pidgeot, as it got itself banned from the UU tier, noticeably lacking those Pokemon, even with its biggest natural enemy Mega Aerodactyl reigning over the tier. However, even there, it failed to perform particularly well in Gen 7. It had its time as an effective stall breaker, but it was eventually adapted to and struggled to leave much of a mark anywhere else. And the lack of Focus Blast in a tier so heavily populated by Empoleon was a major reason why. Not being able to blast Mega Aerodactyl and Rotom Heat wasn't particularly cool either. Overall, Mega Pidgeot could have had it a lot worse, which is why it's only number 4 on this list. But with one addition, it would have been a lot better too. In Generation 3, Aerodactyl finally realized its typing, attack, and speed's amazing potential by getting some real, actual stabs as well as Choice Band. It became one of the most iconic, valuable, dangerous Pokemon in Gen 3 OU. Its flinch-happy Rock Slide arguably the most feared attack in the tier. In Gen 4, its Rock Stab was improved again, power-wise anyway, with Stone Edge, which it wielded on effective Life Orb variants, capable of scaring offense and stall alike. However, that's the last time Aerodactyl's offensive move pool has been really upgraded. unless you count Gen 4 Sky Attack, which, admittedly, did get used a decent amount on lead sets looking to completely destroy its enemy. But champ. Besides that though, zilch. We can sort of make a small exception for Mega Aerodactyl's Tough Claws boosted wing attacks and coverage options like Aqua Tail and the Elemental Fangs. Mega Aerodactyl also got by with Stone Edge just fine, but also that was Mega Aerodactyl. Being a Mega is the main boost there. Base Aerodactyl, on the other hand, has been left wanting for quite some time, dropped further and further down the tiering rung. Doing well, but it still feels like such a waste given its speed remains incredible even by power creep standards, and especially with how needlessly its move pool has yet to be upgraded with stab options that seem incredibly natural and obvious for it. While its base attack in conjunction with the base power of Stone Edge still do fine damage, Aerodactyl needs and has needed a little more than fine. On a Pokemon of Aerodactyl's frail constitution, fine tends to wind up meaning not enough, and therefore Aero gets KO'd in a battle situation. The first thing sorely missing from its move pool is Head Smash. Remember, Aerodactyl is still incredibly frail in a game only getting stronger and faster, so it's not going to be getting sent to Ubers or anything of the sort, but boy would this be sweet revenge. The power upgrade is amazing, and what's more, it makes perfect sense design-wise. Aerodactyl literally has the Rock Head ability, which is the whole reason why Head Smash would be excellent on it and not just a bad gimmick. Given its Stealth Rock weakness and Head Smash's instant recoil, it dropped ridiculously quickly after using it, given the move's immense capacity to dish out damage. But with Rock Head, the Head Smash recoil is completely gone, and Aerodactyl would be able to wield its peerless power without the cost of its own health. It would be the fastest user of Head Smash in the game by far. We have to highlight Rock Head as an ability also because of Aerodactyl's design. Head Smash is a rock type move. Aerodactyl has a head made out of rock, and its head is much more prominent than several other Pokemon receiving the move, like Phanpy and Nidoran, neither of which are rock types. No issue with them having the move, but at least Aerodactyl should have it too, especially if its rock-flying Unovan cousin Archeops does. That's not all either. Aerodactyl has shown itself to be a great user of Flying Stab when given the opportunity, but Wing Attack just isn't enough without Mega Aerodactyl's much higher attack and most especially the Tough Claws boost, while Sky Attack's 2-turn effect is just too unreliable, and Power Herb is limiting and gimmicky, and there's no reason why it shouldn't have Brave Bird. It is, after all, a flying rock dinosaur. Some might even say a bird. Design qualms aside, this ferocious Flying Stab would also greatly increase the number of Pokemon Aerodactyl could threaten, making it not just effectively the mono rock stab Pokemon it often is forced to be, and the best part is, it'd be balanced because it's not getting boosts to its coverage needed to threaten the steals that resist both types, though the power of these moves would make some of them think twice, and Brave Bird also would slam many a ground type looking to eat Stone Edges, while making fighters and grasses officially Aerodactyl food. This is the kind of boost Aerodactyl has needed for a long time, to let it compete at a high level again, and given the outrageous creep it stood by for, it doesn't seem at all unreasonable for it to be gifted these on its next appearance, so it can start making up for lost time. Without these moves, it just doesn't hit hard enough, and it does so while not hitting a wide enough array of Pokemon, earning it a solid number 3 on this list. Quiver Dance, one of the most frightening moves in the game, a booster of few peers in its merciless game-ending talents. It's most famously known as the Volcarona move, of course, but its danger has been felt on several others too, not just the obviously busted Pheromosa, of course, and on the subject of this section, Lilligant, but also Frostmoth, Ribombee, and even Butterfree, who have been spotted using it in Gen 8's Anything Goes. Yes, the tier above Ubers without any restrictions, where your team can have 6 Mega Rayquazas or Arceuses or whatever. However, these Pokemon, Lilligant very much included, are in very low tiers because it's not enough to just have the boost, it's what you use the boost for. Now, the rest of these Pokemon are generally off the hook because they don't hit that hard, and their typing is awkward. A confluence of flaws that means it's not strictly their move pool holding them back. Butterfree's move pool, on the contrary, is great. Lilligant, on the other hand, feels like it should be better, much better than they are. Its pure grass typing is great defensively, bolstered by the boost to special defense given by Quiver Dance, while the physical attackers it'd still be vulnerable to tend to have lower special defense and will thus be much less appreciative of its faster boosted grass stat, which by the way is coming off of quite a solid base 110 special attack stat. Additionally, it's got Sleep Powder. Yes, Sleep Powder is banned in Gen 9 and Gen 5's OU, but that shouldn't be a make or break, and plus in Gen 6s through 8 it blanks into grass types anyway. But yes, when it's available, the move excels at not just letting Lilligant get one Quiver Dance, but potentially multiple. So what gives? Well, while grass has the potential to be a very good stab type, as as repeatedly demonstrated by the likes of Superior, Kartana, Tapu Bulu, and Rillaboom, it also needs support. Grass hits plenty of the big types and Pokemon super effectively, but it's also resisted by quite a bit. You don't need a secondary stab. Of those 4 Pokemon, only Kartana actually has and uses one. You really just need decent coverage. Now, yes, grass is resisted by quite a bit. You need coverage for other grass types, as well as flying types and dragon types. And before you get too excited to throw on HP Ice, remember steels are also going to get in your way. And fires, and bugs, and poisons, yeah. Plus, remember, this is before Gen 8 removed Hidden Power, further illustrating that moves' use as a crutch. You'll never hit everything, but you have to be able to hit a lot of things and hit them well. If either your main stab or your coverage is good enough, you'll be good. See Superior, whose Leaf Storm is so overwhelming that it needs the bare minimum helping it out, and his move pool is actually great anyway, so it's very flexible. Alternatively, Kartana's coverage is so excellent that his Leaf Blade doesn't need to instantly pose the same level of threat. Lilligant's issue then is that it actually has both issues. Its main stab isn't good enough to make up for its poor coverage / non-existent in both power and super effective reach, and vice versa. The issue is obviously exacerbated greatly once Hidden Power is out of the picture, and even in Gen 9, you don't want to be completely reliant on terrestrialization to do anything at all to Pokemon that will otherwise ruin you every time, the way pretty much every grass resist threatens to do to it. But even with Hidden Power, it's just too limited. Game Freak really fixed this with Hisui and Lilligant. It received an excellent secondary fighting stab that pairs beautifully with grass, a stronger grass stab, and the perfect complementary coverage option in Triple Axle. That's what you want on your Pokemon packing Quiver Dance, or well, in Hisui and Lilligant's case, Victory Dance, the physical Quiver Dance. You don't want to be racking your brains over which measly Hidden Power it's going to be. Unova Lilligant really needs the Hisuian treatment as far as its attacking move pool is concerned, and has earned the number 2 spot here thoroughly. Electivire is false promise in Pokemon form. It seems like it has not just a good move pool, but a great one. On paper, that is technically not wrong in and of itself. Yes, Evire's move pool is rife with fierce offensive options. It was famously touted for hitting 13 of the 17 types in the game super effectively when introduced in Generation 4, etc, etc. However, a good move pool is not just packing great moves, but moves that can be used well by the Pokemon that has them. To take an extreme example, if Blissey's move pool was nothing but the best physical attacks in the game, it'd be worthless. That kind of thing is exactly what drags Electivire down so badly. Many of its well-documented issues go beyond move pool, of course. Typing, non-existent bulk, not fast enough, an underwhelming special attack stat, but then you get to its move pool issues where even beyond the obvious ones of not having good physical electric stab and Ice Punch being terribly weak to go with it, you are thoroughly underwhelming beyond that. Mostly because what would solve many issues, fighting coverage, comes in the form of Cross Chop, which isn't just inaccurate, but not even that strong in a post-close combat age. It just isn't hitting hard enough, and that's because the moves in its arsenal seem perfectly good with either coverage or power, but actually wind up being complete letdowns. It's not even that it can't fit all the great moves in its move pool, it's that the moves aren't even that great to begin with. So yeah, there's a lot Evire wants. Now Gen 9 gave it Supercell Slam for physical electric stab, which is finally an upgrade over the eternal mediocrity of Wild Charge, but not nearly the level of power needed. Let's get at least 110 base power, which isn't going to be anywhere near unreasonable and wouldn't have been even as far back as Gen 4. Additionally, Evire somehow missed Gen 9's great wave of distributing Triple Axle, a move which was given to Milotic, Bellossom, and Ambipom, and which would have been a tremendous addition to Evire's move pool. Finally, it is baffling that in a generation that also dished out close combat left and right, Evire was overlooked. With these issues patched, Evire would be at least serviceable somewhere, as opposed to the perpetually untiered lunk it is now, because now, for all its other flaws, it would actually threaten real damage on almost anything. It feels a bit like saying Mew's move pool isn't deep enough, given the long list of colorful options at Evire's disposal, but those colors are all flash and no substance. Evire deserves this rank, honestly. And that's it. Obviously, there are many offensive Pokemon with great potential that are then let down by just not having the right moves for the job. So it's possible we will return to the subject in the future. Let us know what you think of this list, what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you personally put on such a list. Who knows, we might agree so much that we include it in another installment. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. And as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos. And thank you to everyone else watching as well. And thank you so much to our Platinum patrons. Thank you to Alex Sable, Anthony Belval Renault, Bingleton, Daniel Is Beast, Funky, Glitcherton, Gustavo, Howl, Jack G, Lord of the Rabbit, Pretzel SP, Raven Daytona Ring, Ray Ray, Skylaria, Soares and Croxon, Shiwei Miji, and Stoneface Colin for their major support of our videos. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.